Good morning, everyone. I welcome you all to the day 10 of the Quality Improvement Program. I hope you all are enjoying the sessions. The best session of the day is being chaired by Dr. Amul Muthal Sir, Assistant Professor in Pune College of Pharmacy, Bharati Vidyapit University. Sir has completed his MPharm and PhD and has over 5 years of academic experience and 7 years of research experience. He has done about 8 publications and is currently pursuing PG diploma in clinical research and PG diploma in pharmacovigilance and clinical data management. I request Sir to introduce the speaker for the session.
Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. For the today's session, we have Dr. Subhash Lakshmana Rao Bodankar with us. I welcome sir for this session. Sir has graduated in pharmacy from Nagpur University and completed post-graduation in 1973 from Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research, PGI-MER, Chandigarh. He started his teaching career as a demonstrator in the pharmacology department of prestigious Lady Hardinge Medical College and Hospital, New Delhi, and later shifted to Holkar Science College, Indore. He joined Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Nigeria, West Africa in 1976, and in 1986 he returned to India. He was awarded PhD in 1985 for his thesis Thermal and Behavioral Effect of 5-hydroxytryptamine in the domestic fall Gallus domesticus by Ahmadu Bello University, Nigeria. He joined Bharati Vidyapit Medical College as Associate Professor of Pharmacology and then moved to Pune College of Pharmacy. After retirement, he is working as a professor in Department of Pharmacology at Bharati Vidyapit deemed to be University, Pune College of Pharmacy, Pune. 27 student has completed PhD under his guidance. He has also guided 137 MPharm student. He has completed more than 80 industrial projects on safety and efficacy of drugs. Dr. Bodankar is an active research worker and published about 305 papers in national and international journals, and in addition to 130 presentations in conference. He has published a book entitled Pathophysiology for BPharm course. He is a life member of Indian Pharmacology Society. He is trained CPC-SCA nominee for IAEC for several colleges and industries. He is also member of Institutional Review Board of Ethical Committee of Lupin Biosciences, Pune. He received many awards for research papers and theses. Few of them are Ramlal Shah Estox Indian Drug Manufacturer Association Award, Chimote and Garpure Award from Maharashtra Society of Pharmacology, Best Guide in Ayurveda. He has received 3 times this award, and Vishesh Seva Puraskar from Bharati Vidyapit Deemed University. He receives prestigious Dr. N.S. Dalla Oration Award for lifetime contribution in cardiovascular sciences at the 42nd Annual Conference of Indian Pharmacological Society held at Kolkata. Dr. A.S. Paranjape Oration Award at Oracon 2010 held at Sen Kinare Auditorium of SET GS Medical College and KEM Hospital, Parel, Mumbai in November 2010. He delivered invited lectures at first AmTalks conference held at KPC Medical College, Kolkata on 11 to 12 December 2010. He has worked extensively on indigenous medicinal plants. Some of the plants included in his study are fenugreek, flaxseed, Decalibis hamiltoni, Sosuria lapa, Landinaria sisuraria, that is bottle gourd. Hello? The pharmacological activities were anti-atherosclerotic, anti-hypertensive, antipsychotic, anti-epileptic, and sports medicine. He has also carried out toxicity testing of many plant extracts and synthetic compounds. His research contribution to development of anti-diabetic formulation leads to the formulation known as the Sugar Hill and omega-3 fatty acid oil. Recently, his name has been included in the list prepared by Stanford University, USA, citing top 2% scientists. With this, I request Dr. Bodhankar sir to start his session. Ayush,
Yes, sir.
please share the screen.
Yes, sir. Just a minute, okay?
Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Sir is with me.
Good morning, everybody. Today we will start with the clinical safety assessment by therapeutic drug monitoring. Now, as you know very well, TDM or therapeutic drug monitoring is defined as the use of drug concentration in body fluid as an aid to management of patients receiving drug therapy for the cure, alleviation, or prevention of disease. Now, there are few things here in the definition of this TDM. What we do in TDM is to measure the quantity. In other words, it is known as the level of drug present in the plasma at a particular time. That time is known as a spot. And that reading is used for assessment of the therapeutic effectiveness, or if it is less, subtherapeutic effect, or if it is more, the toxicity. Now, blood is one of the matrix which is very common. Apart from blood, there are other matrices also where the drug concentration can be measured. That we will see soon. Now, in this case, what happens when the drugs are taken? Especially, this is pertaining to oral route of administration. If you give drug by IV route, then immediately high concentration of drug in the blood is seen. But for oral administration, like the tablet, capsule, syrup, mixture, or any other preparation for that purpose, it takes some time because of the absorption process. And then the drug will appear in the blood. There also you will find that given stipulated time, the concentration of the drug may be low. This concentration of the drug may not be effective in the treatment of the disease. Simple example let us take, that is of antibiotic. For full therapeutic effect, minimum concentration of antibiotic, which we call as optimum concentration, has to be achieved in the blood. If it is not achieved, then that antibiotic effect in killing the bacteria or the virus will not be seen. So therefore, how much time is required before the desired therapeutic concentration is reached in the blood. That is very, very important in this case. Then here there are three things: cure, alleviation, or prevention of disease. Most of the cases of cure, you will find that the antibacterial type of effect that is required for cure of that bacterial infection also. It will stop the growth of the bacteria, that is bacteriostatic, or it will kill the bacteria and give the cure. Alleviation means suppose there are some symptoms which are associated with that disease. Very simple example we will take: headache, very common. So before a drug concentration is reached, desired drug concentration is reached, the headache will not be alleviated. So some concentration is required in the blood to alleviate the headache or such symptoms. And prevention of disease. As you know very well, these days much emphasis is given on vaccination for the prevention of disease and other things. But before these vaccines were available, there were other measures also which the patient were advised to take, whereby the disease will not be occurring in that patient. So in all these cases, the blood concentration of the drug is a very, very important tool for management of disease conditions of the patients. Then there are two important aspects how it is helping the clinician. The first thing is that in pharmacology, as we call, effectiveness and safety. These are the two fundamental aspects of each and every drug which are to be seen in that case. Effectiveness means pharmacodynamically. That drug, when it is given, must produce the required effect. If it doesn't produce the required effect, then that means that that drug is not of any value and it should not be given to the patient. And safety. Safety is of prime importance because there is a thing which we call as a therapeutic window or therapeutic index. In some drugs like digoxin and other, you will find that there is a very narrow gap or narrow margin between the effective dose of the drug and the toxic dose of the drug. If by mistake the toxic dose of the drug is given, then patient will die. So in such cases, by assessing the blood concentration of the drug, you can determine about the toxicity. Same thing is there when people take drugs for homicide purposes like barbiturates or sleeping tablets and many other drugs which they consume to kill themselves or to do murder. So for that purpose also, the blood concentration of the drug measurement is very, very important in that case. So effectiveness and safety, these are the two important parameters which a TDM must follow in that case. Now, what are the objectives? The objective of this TDM is that any time, at any cost, the tablet of the drug which patient has taken or which the pharmacist has given must produce in the blood desired therapeutic range concentration of the drug. At that concentration, drug should not be killing or toxic to the patient, but it must show its effect. So that is the aim. For that purpose, the dose of the drug has to be adjusted. This science of dose of the drug, as you know very well, is known as posology. And posology is followed so that you give the adequate dose which will 100% will produce optimum concentration of the drug in the blood which is safe, which will not produce any toxicity or adverse effects, and it will give the desired effect in that patient. So this is one objective. Posology, you have to find out the dose. Secondly, clinical pharmacology, pathology, chemistry, toxicology, analytical chemistry, and medicine. These things are to be correlated. What is the meaning of that correlation? Clinical pharmacology means here a physician, MD, who has done pharmacology, MD, he is the one who is handling the administration of dose and other things to the patient, and he is assisting or is advising or helpful to the MBBS doctor or the physician. For that purpose, that physician can take advice of this clinical pharmacologist regarding the dose, time of administration, and so many things which can arise when the drug is administered. Then pathology. Pathology is very, very important because liver function test, kidney function test, and electrolytes and other parameters which are there, which are altered in the course of the disease. If the treatment is given, proper treatment is given, if the original values, normal values, are restored by treatment of the drug or not, will be known by the pathological test in that case. So clinical chemistry is very, very important in this case. And if some biopsy is required, say cancer or any such disease where tissue is removed for assessment of the disease, then that pathologist plays a very important role in this case. Chemistry. What is the role of chemistry? Role of chemistry, especially analytical chemistry, is there whereby modern techniques have been developed which are very, very sensitive, very rapid, cost effective, and which are useful, you can say gold rule for measurement of drug concentration. One of the major advances in this field is LCMSMS, which is used by all people these days, and that is the one sorry, where role of chemistry is coming. I will tell you about some new advances in the chemistry whereby new methods are being constantly developed for that purpose. Toxicology is there because you want to know what will be the effect of high dose or high blood concentration on the body. That comes under toxicology. And nowadays, as you know very well, that a new branch of pharmacology has come, which is known as pharmacovigilance. And this pharmacovigilance is now compulsory for all the new drugs which are introduced in the market to assess the toxicology of these new drugs. And many reports they come after the retrospective studies, and as a result of that, some drugs are withdrawn from the market because they face the issue of toxicology. Ropicoxib is very classical example why it was withdrawn from the market, and that toxicology plays a very important role on the economic state of the company. I will give you here a very good example. The giant Reddy Lab, they introduced ragaglitazone, which is a very good anti-diabetic drug, and that ragaglitazone passed the clinical trial, first phase, second phase, third phase. And when it was in the third phase, at that time, it was observed that in the Reddy laboratory, the mice which were treated with that raga developed kidney tumors. So as a result of that, drug was withdrawn immediately. Trial was stopped, and the shares of Reddy came down. So it has got a great impact on that one. Now also you are hearing that this COVID vaccine, AstraZeneca, not effective in South Africa also, or toxicity has been produced. So all these things matter very much in the use of the drugs, very important toxicology parameters are there. The analytical chemistry. Analytical chemistry is again comes with the sophisticated instruments, new techniques which are developed and user friendly, low sample required, low quantity of sample required. Previously, they used to take 5 ml of the blood. Now, with a micro quantity of the blood, you can estimate the drug, and so many new advances have come in analytical chemistry. And medicine, of course, medicine solely depends upon whatever data is generated of TDM by these various sciences, and then the dose, frequency of administration, how to take it, before food, after food, like that, for how many days, duration, etc., is decided. And medicine people, they use it, they prescribe it for their patients, thinking that it is effective and safe type of the prescription or the regime in that case. Then next is to remove empirical trial and error approach. This trial and error approach was there before the analytical methods were not available. This means that you give the tablet, see the effect, see after how many minutes or after how many hours the clinical effect is seen or no. Now you measure the blood concentration. Based upon this reading, you correlate the clinical response. So the speculation or the trial and error approach has been removed because of evidence-based techniques which are followed in this field. Then here, as we have already seen this, pharmacokinetic ADME is there, and dose of the drug when it is given is subjected to absorption, distribution, metabolism and excretion. And then the blood concentration comes. Here you find that blood will carry that drug to the receptor. Some of the drug will get bind with the receptor, and some of the drug will not get bind with the receptor. that will be the free drug which is there, and then when drug receptor binding takes place, the clinical effect is seen. So this is how this whole cycle goes on, and pharmacokinetic parameters are very, very important in the TDM for that purpose. Now, what is the necessity of TDM? Why you want to do TDM? First thing is that there is a pharmacokinetic variability with drugs like aspirin and digoxin. These are very typical drugs. Typical drugs means they show great biological variation. Meaning is that suppose there are two patients, patient A and patient B, and if you give same dose of digoxin, lanoxin tablet to those patients, in one patient you will find X concentration in the blood. Another patient you expect that the same concentration will be seen in the blood, but it is not that. It may show something different because of the pharmacogenomics, and so many factors are there. As a result of that, the PK of these drugs vary from individual to individual. So in such cases, whatever data is available, that may not be useful to determine the dose, frequency, and other thing of administration. Now, in this case, if you look at the pharmacology book, in the pharmacology book, the chapter about drug is given, and there, after mechanism of action and other thing, pharmacology, there is a small write-up about the PK of that drug. Most of the students don't read that because they don't understand the importance of this PK. What is there in that PK? It shows that how much is the protein bound. That means how much free drug is available. What is the T half? What is the area under curve? And Emax and other parameters they are given. If you look at them or if you read them carefully, you will have an idea about the behavior of the drug based upon this pharmacokinetic data. And whatever variability is seen is there because that data will vary from person to person. So that is known as the PK way. Then concentration related therapeutic and adverse effects. For example, phenytoin. Phenytoin is a very typical drug which is used for treatment of epilepsy, and there, as a pharmacist, you should ask a very simple question to the patient. That simple question is that while brushing in the morning, do you find blood spots or blood coming from the gums on the toothbrush also? That indicates that there is a gum hyperphagia, swelling of the gums after phenytoin, and that shows that toxic effect is reached in that case. Second, ataxia. That patient, if he has taken, if the blood level of phenytoin is more, he will not be able to walk in a straight line. He will be moving from one side to other side, as if someone has drunk alcohol and after taking alcohol if he is walking, that type of gait is known as ataxia. Vertigo. Vertigo means if that person goes to a higher altitude and looks down, he feels that all the world is revolving around him. Chakkar. So that is a vertigo. And drowsiness is there. That is a side effect of this phenytoin because of high concentration of this phenytoin. So therefore, the concentration related therapeutic and adverse effects can be measured or can be assessed by measuring the blood concentration. Here, I would like to tell you a very interesting example. We were doing TDM of phenytoin, and neurologist at the BJ Medical College, Sasur, she had a patient, a boy, who had epileptic attacks. So it was decided that that boy should be given phenytoin. And his mother, father, they were given phenytoin tablet bottle, and they were asked to give that tablet regularly to the boy. At the same time, they were asked to maintain a diary record of how many epileptic fits that boy has got and whether there is a improvement in the condition. After 1 month or so, those parents came back fighting, literally fighting with the doctor, stating that whatever treatment you have given has not helped this boy and his condition is still worse. So doctor was amazed. He said that how it is possible when you are giving phenytoin to the patient, there must be some improvement in the epileptic attack frequency and severity. So there was a big issue, and the case went up to the dean, and the inquiry was set as what happened and this thing. So those phenytoin tablets were given to us to see whether they are genuine ones or adulterated ones. Because in the government hospital, many a times, the medicine is not up to the standard. It may be mud in that one. So we checked it here and we found that it is all right. Phenytoin, no problem with phenytoin. Chemical constituent and other thing. Good. It passed the assay. Then we thought that why that boy is not getting response. Maybe that boy is not taking that drug or that mother is not giving that drug to the boy regularly. Because this has to be given very regularly at a fixed time to the patient. So we expressed our concern, and the doctor again called that parent and said, so initially parents refused. They said that no, we are giving that phenytoin very regularly to the patient and this and that, and they argued with us. Almost 3 hours this argument started. Then I told them that you bring the bottle and show it to us. So when that bottle was brought and shown to us, we observed that it is not empty. The patient has not taken any drug. And then we asked that boy to get admitted in the Sassoon, and under the supervision of nurse, physically, daily that treatment was given to that boy. And after 1 week, the boy was discharged. During that 7 days period, that boy did not get any attack of epilepsy. We checked his blood. When we checked his blood before, we found that there is no phenytoin in his blood. That means that it was obvious that the boy did not take phenytoin. But after 7 days, when we again checked the blood, we found that the level of phenytoin in the blood is adequate. 50 microgram per ml or so, whatever was there, was adequate. And as a result of that, boy was not getting any epileptic attack. So when these graphs were explained to the patient, his family, they realized that yes, it was their mistake that they were not giving. And when that boy took it, he was not getting any attack of epilepsy. And now, after say some 20 years or so, I had a chance to meet with the doctor, and doctor says that boy is very good. He's got a job and other thing, and he's keeping good. So this is how this clinically related, concentrated related effects and adverse effects of this phenytoin can be seen. As a pharmacist, whenever any patient comes to you, you ask that patient to open his mouth and check the condition of his gums. If gum atrophy is there, then that means that high concentration, toxic concentration of phenytoin is there. Then narrow TI, digoxin. As I have told you, this digoxin, lanoxin tablets by Wellcome, they are available very small quantity, microgram dose is there. If that dose exceeds, then digitalis induced tachycardia can occur. So, digitalis has got a narrow therapeutic index, therefore, blood levels of digitalis are to be maintained very accurately, otherwise, tachycardia uh, can occur in that case. Effect difficult to monitor. Now here there are some conditions, some diseases where there are no set parameters to monitor the effect. Say for example, if you talk of blood pressure or blood glucose, then measurements are there which you can titrate with the dose of the drug. In that case, there is no need of TDM. Because if you give one tablet of antihypertensive drug, the BP will come down by this mmHg. You can titrate that. So there is no need of any such TDM. But there are certain conditions where no measurement is there. How you will assess? For that purpose, the TDM is very, very useful because it is showing that the concentration in the blood has reached, and from that, the patient will get the desired therapeutic effect or so. So, this is a very good tool to determine when there is no correlation between the effect which you can monitor in that case. Inter-individual variation in metabolism. There are enzymes CYP 450, large number of isoforms are there, and there are individuals who have variable quantity of these enzymes. In some, the enzymes may not be present. So the drugs which are metabolized by these enzymes, their metabolism will be affected. Similarly, patient with G6PD enzyme deficiency, and so many cases are there where genetic deficiency will lead to the individual variation in the metabolism of the drug. Saturation kinetics, omeprazole. Omeprazole is a classical anti-ulcer drug, and here the therapeutic regime is to give this omeprazole or pantoprazole or this thing 40 mg tablet for 1 month or so that the ulceration can be reduced and healing of the ulceration will be seen. In such cases, it so happens that as you are giving daily drug to the patient, in that patient, full drug metabolism does not take place. Some drug remains in his body, and that residual drug gets added with the next drug, next dose of the drug. As a result of that, saturation arises. So that is known as the saturation kinetics, which is very common in omeprazole. Because in that case, the body doesn't get time to completely metabolize omeprazole also. Then difficult to recognize toxicity science clinically. Here, there are certain symptoms which clinically may not be noticeable. They changes, damage inside the body are occurring, but their visual effect or behavioral effect or autonomic effect doesn't develop. So this toxicity is very difficult to recognize in such conditions clinically. But if you measure the blood concentration, you will come to know that yes, higher concentration. So when higher concentration is there than the stipulated one, that means that the toxicity is occurring in that patient, but apparently that patient is not showing any symptoms of that toxicity. So it happens. So therefore, the difficult to recognize the toxicity uh, clinically can be overcome by measuring the blood concentration so that you can say definitely that yes, this is the concentration and it must be producing toxicity, although clinical symptoms may not be there. Then hepatic and renal diseases. These hepatic and renal diseases, they are very, very common, especially if the patient is taking aminoglycosides and other type of antibiotics, whereby hepatic damage means that the metabolism of the drug will be compromised. It will be reduced. And renal disease, nephrotoxicity, which is produced by aminoglycoside, will not allow the full quantity of the drug to be excreted out. Some quantity of the drug will remain in the body, and that quantity will produce toxicity. So, in case of hepatic or renal type of damage, dose of the drug must be reduced. It is not the normal dose to be given to the patient, but it must be reduced. Otherwise, toxicity will be seen. Then multiple drug therapy and drug interaction. Here, probenecid, if it is given, increases the level of penicillin. Now, this is a very, very acute problem. Multiple drug therapy. If you look at today's prescription, you will find that the consultant doctor writes 10 to 20 drugs in one single prescription, which contains all sorts of drugs. Vitamins are there, calcium are there, antacids are there, and antioxidants are there. So many different categories of drugs are there. Main drug is there, but along with that main drug, 10 other drugs are there. Now, is there any interaction between the main drug and the other drug? Needs to be seen. Who will notice it? The pharmacist. How pharmacist will notice it? Based upon the clinical effects, and secondly, if he recommends to the doctor for carrying out TDM then this type of interactions can be very well revealed. Because suppose there is a drug which is antihypertensive, for example. Now you are giving B drug or C drug, which is antioxidant or reducing agent or vitamin or whatever it may be. The stipulated blood level of parent drug is known, say 50 microgram per liter also is known. Now, same drug, if it is given with other drug, you find that the level is going to 60 microgram per ml also. That means that there is a enhancement in the blood concentration which can produce toxicity. If the drug is very good, in that case it will produce toxicity. So all these things you can see. Probenecid is a classical example which is given. If it is given with penicillin, it will increase the level of penicillin. Then doubtful patient compliance. This doubtful patient compliance, I have given you the example of that boy, phenytoin, where patient compliance was not there. So as a result of that, the therapeutic effectiveness was not seen. That means that the blood concentration, if you decide, then you will come to know whether the patient has actually taken the drug or he has thrown away the drug. So, doubtful patient compliance can be seen in this case. You can find it out in that case. This happens with tuberculosis drug because this tuberculosis drug, they are free. They are given free to the patient, and many patients, they take this for a week or so, they feel all right, then they go to the chemist and sell them to get money. As a result of that, later on, TB is not cured in that patient because treatment for TB is 9 months or so. So the doctor is amazed as what happened. We have given him very good anti-tubercular drugs, but patient is not showing any progress. That means that the patient compliance is poor. And if you measure the blood concentration of these drugs, you will come to know whether patient has taken the drug or he has not taken the drug. The examples of drugs which need TDM, as we have already seen, aminoglycoside, phenytoin, carbamazepine, vigoxine, amiodarone, lithium, tricyclic antidepressant, theophylline, and methotrexate. The TDM is not necessary where the doses are very broad. The direct measurement like BP or blood sugar is there, so you can titrate it with that one. Then, in some cases, the plasma concentration and the clinical response correlation is not there. And lastly, expensive procedure, because the instruments which are required for TDM, they are not available with any primary health center or any hospital, tertiary hospital or private hospital for that purpose. Special centers are there where these equipments are available as a central instrumentation facility. For example, in Maharashtra, KEM Hospital, Mumbai, they have got this TDM center. So there, these expensive instruments are available, and there you have to send the sample. Then essential. The principle is that there is a continuous and graded response. Here, continuous and graded response means after giving that tablet also, blood concentration is reached And if you increase the dose, a dose response relationship or concentration response relationship must be obtained in that case. Secondly, residual pharmacodynamic variability. Here, residual pharmacodynamic dynamic ability means the drug combines with the receptor, resulting in drug receptor interaction, which causes conformational perturbation in the drug receptor complex, which produces a triggers a chain of or cascade of reactions which results in the pharmacological effect. So that variability, if it is there in the pharmacodynamic effect, that has to be seen. Then accurate dosing is very, very important. Correct sampling site and time. This is very important because in the pharmacokinetics, if you have already taken some lectures in pharmacokinetics, you find that the blood samples are taken, say, after giving the drug, half an hour, 1 hour, 1.5, 2, like that, up to 24 hours or so. If you want to do the pharmacokinetic. But that data, if it is available, because that data is from the healthy human volunteers. From that data, what you can interpret is the time when peak of that drug in the blood is seen. Say 2 hours after giving drug. Then when you carry out TDM, at that time there is no need of taking so many samples. You take the sample exactly after 2 hours or so. So that you get the peak quantity in that case. Only thing of concern here is that the data which is available is in the healthy patients, and data which you are using for TDM is in the diseased patient. And if that patient is suffering from kidney or hepatic failure, then values will change. So that point you have to always consider when you compare with a healthy patient. And the time you can vary with that case, because suppose if you take sample after 2 hours and if you find that no, the adequate drug concentration is not there, so take another sample after 3 hours, and by this you decide which will be the optimum time for the drug to appear in the blood. So correct sampling time is very, very important. No error during administration. Here, the nurse or the intern or the doctor, he has to be near the patient. He has to have a torch. And when the patient takes that tablet and drinks water, ask the patient to open his mouth, and with torch, you see whether that tablet is still in the mouth of that patient or he has gulped it. That is very important because some patients are very cunning. They will take the tablet in front of doctor. As soon as the doctor goes away, he will spit it out. So correct administration, no error should be there, because if the patient has spit it off, naturally blood level will be zero and you will be wondering where the drug has gone. So with a torch, you make sure that the patient has taken it. Ask the patient to sit for half an hour after taking the tablet. Don't allow him to move around or go out and this and that, because he will go near the window and split the tablet. So that practice has to be banned, and you have to make sure that the drug has taken. rugged and accurate means of analysis. Whatever method you have selected must be very good, best method, validated method, and reproducible method, quick method. So all these criteria that method must fulfill in that case. New methods are being developed every day where multiple estimation is being done. I will give you one very good example in this regard. The KEM hospital, they have TDM laboratory with them and they have chromatography, HPLC method for estimation of phenytoin and other anti-epileptic drugs. So we were working here, we developed HPTLC method. And this HPTLC method has advantages. In terms that sensitivity was high, quick method, and rugged method, accurate method, so many advantages. So we contacted the doctor. She was angry with us. She said that why you want to develop method? You have carried out the study only in 32 patients and you claim that this is new method which we have developed. We are doing HPLC for last several years and our this thing is good. He said, Madam, it is our objective to develop a rugged and accurate means of analysis better than HPLC, where not only phenytoin but lamotrigine and other drugs, carbamazepine and other drugs, if the patient has taken 3-4 drugs, anticonvulsant, they will also come in this HPTLC. HPLC will not give multiple drug estimations in that case because there each peak is for one drug in that case. So that madam did not agree, but we published our paper in the Journal of Chromatography, which was well accepted and many people used it. We got remarks that your method is better and this and that. And after a few years, again we met that madam in a conference. Now she was very sport. She said that yes, we are using now HPTLC. So this is how the rugged and accurate means of analysis should be there. Now, what has happened is HPLC is absolute out of, and now LCMS has come, which is more rugged and more accurate for analysis. There are certain advantages and disadvantages of that method. Then process, decision to request. Now there, if the physician experiences that there is some toxicity of the drug and based upon the clinical effects, he says that as a curiosity, what is the concentration of the drug in the blood? Because clinical toxicity is seen. So he gives a request that you estimate the concentration of the drug in the blood, then it can be correlated to the toxicity and then the dose can be reduced. This is very important in that case. Lack of response. Lack of response, I had gave you story of that boy who was not given tablet of phenytoin and no response in that boy. So lack of response may be there when the drug is not given to that patient. That you can only find out by blood concentration. Otherwise, the parent, they will tell you lie. They will say that we have given the drug. Even the nurse will say that we have given the drug. But when blood concentration is 0, that proves that the drug is not given to that patient. Compliance, as I told you, TB patient, they throw away the drugs or they sell away the drugs, and as a result of that, no further response is seen in them. So that shows that pure compliance is there. Assess therapy after regimen change. Now here, it so happens that in case of antibiotics or other drugs, actually the rule is that this antibiotic must be given before, means after carrying out the culture of the sample, but that is not followed, and then the response is not there, so doctor will change to new antibiotic. He says higher or more powerful antibiotic, and then the assessment of response can be done, and there if you take the blood level, you can come to know whether that antibiotic is working or not. Potential drug interactions, we have spoken about the CYP 450 inhibitors and urinary enhancement and other things. Chronic administration is needed. Surface plasmon resonance and Raman spectroscopy. These are the two methods which are developed for anti-cancer, antibiotic, anti-epileptic for and therapeutic drug antibodies. So recent advances in this case have come. Sensors, they have got certain advantages and disadvantages, as you can see from this slide. Electrochemical also has got some advantages. The biosensors, electrochemical, now nanoparticles or nanotubes are used for that purpose. Bioreceptor DNA is used, antibodies, then plasma membranes, aptamers, etc. These are the latest techniques which has come for anti-cancer, antibiotic and antifungal type of drugs. Then matrix selection. This is very important. There is one research paper which gives all these methods. The paper is on site, therapeutic drug monitoring, a review which has come in trends in biotechnology. So those of you who want to read this more, we will send it to them. You put the request. Then blood is a classical matrix for that purpose. But blood has got some disadvantage that the high cost is there in the collection, transportation and processing of sample. So they are using dried blood spots where very small quantity of blood will be required. Then comes the sweat. Here also some advantages, disadvantages are there because this is a non-invasive. There is no need of needle being used in that case. Interstitial fluid and saliva. Saliva has got advantages. Only point is that the blood concentration in saliva is about 10% less compared to the blood sample. So that disadvantage is there. So we need a good sensitive method for assessment of saliva in that case. Then the applications, side effect monitoring is there, short hospital stay, better disease control, dose adjustment, dose guidelines, individualized dose regime, and useful to clinical pharmacist. So some of the values for TDM, gentamicin, amikacin, carbamazepine, digoxin, cyclosporin, theophylline, lithium. And now this is the form which is required for TDM request. Sorry. The first part is patient information and other things. Then details about history and other thing, drug, dose, duration, etc. And then the complaint, disease, which is present in that patient, information about that. Then why this TDM is there? Is it for routine, for toxicity study, or it is for non-responder, or compliance, drug interaction, pregnancy and other thing, signature of the physician and approval of the ethical committee. This is required for carrying out the TDM in that case, and then the patient consent form. This must be in local language. And nowadays, the compulsory for the video recording is taken, and compulsory that the patient or his relative has understood the reason for taking his blood. So that has to be explained to him in his native language. Two witnesses are required for signature if he is a minor or a illiterate type of patient in that case. So in conclusion, we can say that TDM is required for effective patient care, optimizes pharmacological therapy, decrease incidence of drug-related toxicity, reduce hospital stay, avoidance or bombarding of unnecessary medication, side effects are reduced, and reliable and effective tool of patient compliance and management of therapy in patients receiving complex co-medication or suffering from other diseases. The only disadvantage of this TDM, as I told you that in India, especially in Maharashtra, there is only one center where TDM is carried out, that is KEM Hospital Mumbai. They are specialists in anticonvulsant drug TDM. They are not specialists in other type. So there is a need for opening of new centers. And as the instruments are costly, LCMS and MS cost in crores, government grant is required for those things. And secondly, variety of parameters or variety of tests should be there in that laboratory, like immunoassay facility and other facilities should be there. So it's a very, very big project. And only at the government level, such projects with the help of medical colleges, they can be taken. Till that time, we have no other alternative except to send the sample to Mumbai and wait. Disadvantage is that it takes some time before you get the result. It is not immediate that next moment you get the result. And then that delay in the time at the government level itself defeats the purpose of TDM. So local centers should be there, trained persons, trained analytical chemists, maintenance, and so many things should be there for that purpose. If you go abroad, you will find that this facility is there in most of the centers. So we are far behind in this respect compared to the Western countries. So lastly, I acknowledge Dr. Pawar, Dr. Arul, Urmila, and Amol Mutha in preparation of this presentation. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
Okay. Sir has given a very informative talk about the therapeutic drug monitoring. He has highlighted about the use of TDM that requires a combined approach encompassing pharmaceutical, pharmacokinetic, and pharmacodynamic techniques and analysis. The appropriate use of TDM requires more than a simple measurement of the patient's blood concentration and comparison to the target in a target range. TDM plays an important role in the development of the safe and effective therapeutic medications and individualization of these medications. Additionally, the TDM can help to identify the problems with medications compliance among non-compliance patient cases. When interpreting drug concentration measurements, factors that need to be considered include the sample time in relation to the dose, the dosage history, the patient response, analytical method used for the detection of the drug, the matrix complex used for it, and the desired clinical targets. The information can be used to identify the most appropriate dosage regimen to achieve the optimal response with the minimal activity. With this, I open this talk for the question answer session. If you have any question, you can ask. Yes, Ayush.
Yes, sir.
Hi. Is there any question from the audience?
Sir, not yet in the chat box. Wait a minute. All the delegates are requested to ask any questions if they have. They can unmute themselves.
Thank you so much, sir, for the enlightening session. I hope there are no questions from the delegates. So let's join back after 5 minutes for the next session at 11:25.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.